Good evening. So tonight, I want to share things more in a stream of consciousness way. A lot going on in the world, and there's a few subject matters that are poking around in the bushes, and I want to give them some attention and record it for giving out and maybe keeping company. One is about loss. No doubt, there's no one who hasn't experienced this phenomenon, and to varying degrees. Sometimes the memory of a loss is a kind of a reminder that some things are never solved, that it's in a kind of an embryonic private affair of its own, and it wasn't really about you. It was something much larger than the individual involved, and it's a part of a story perhaps that is just simply not touchable and personable. We want to make strong memories personal, and some of them deserve that for sure. And in a way, they're easier to identify with and feel. And then there are certain memories that they make themselves known from a distance. Always, they're always recallable. You can go back and remember it, and there they are. But there's no handholds. It's just a completely smooth surface, quiet and gestating in some way. And sometimes when you're speaking to people, you can feel it. You can feel that there's something in the background of their mood that's roaming around. Sometimes calling the shots. Sensitivity to these objects of sorts in people is very important, because everyone has inexplicable things going on inside them, things that are so abstract that no poetry can record them, no song, no art, no policy or ideology can embrace it. It's something simply different, and yet it's capable of, or we're capable of hosting it as a part of ourselves. It's a kind of an abstraction that's definitely part of the human identity, but it never exactly interprets itself or translates itself into being less of what it is so that it can be conceived or translated in some way, which is to its credit, I feel, because we are, uh, by instinct, both animalistic and intellectual. And there has to be a third party that keeps keeps some semblance of mystery or curiosity or confusion. Um, I think it's this part that allows us to see something beautiful. Um, it's this part that is awestruck by something or feels something so deeply that it triggers a kind of reverence that is oftentimes too powerful to contain. It almost takes your breath away, like you forget how to breathe, or you mildly regret being a human being because somewhere in the back of the imagination you know you could connect with it, but you can't. And that knowing, it's almost like a memory, right? With no handholds, like a instinctual feeling in your gut that somehow you're connected to this thing deeply, and yet there's a barrier of union. Um, I feel that way about the ocean. Um, it's a very it's a very odd relationship in that I'm not a scuba diver or a marine biologist, um, or a treasure hunter, um, not a surfboarder or swimmer in general. Um, but my connection with the ocean is uh, so strong that maybe the strength of it um, is more of the ocean than the ocean itself. That relationship. Um, I mean, the ocean is a form. It's an expression of something, but the something itself is in behind the form. At least that's how I experience it. And in this day and age, like there's the transparency, like I think looking back through the history of America, things were very opaque. Um, People very caught up in um, domestic affairs and um, kind of uh, the meat and potatoes of life, um, like a sort of a frontier um, table of contents or priorities: raising children, working hard, going to church, doing your civil duties, playing sports, living life, and um, polishing your car, uh, relationships, and then came along computers and and then smartphones, um, and deeper, more cerebral sci-fi uh, movies and series, uh, and then came along social media, and then something changed. I'm not exactly sure what it is or how it happened, but something shifted. It seems in the attention span and ability, like the BS meters, um, became more flimsy and not so solid state as they used to be. And I think that more distractions, um, media, in some sense, played a part. But overall, a certain desire uh, shifted, and things became more transparent. Like the underlying psychology of humanity started to bubble up to the surface, and all the cynicism and bigotry and racism and all the murmurings under the floorboards started to lose their ability to hide, and um, and then came along Fox News and U.S. State Department uh, regime backed media companies and uh, large behemoth marketers and sellers of goods like Walmart and Home Depot and Amazon, and even the taxi services got slammed pretty hard with uh, the the mobile private individuals doing it, um, Uber and things like this, and uh, so the individualism started to be pulled out, and those who were once maybe shop owners became employees to a bigger entity, so to speak, and individualism seems to be always a kind of a rare commodity, regardless of what's happening in the status quo. Um, I mean, in the sense of reminding people that whatever they're hearing is an opinion, and relative to the the person reporting it, oftentimes more so than the actual facts. But when lies start to become facts, that's where the transparency starts to double back on itself and consume itself. And I see that's where we're at right now, all across the planet. Um, the legitimacy of certain institutions are coming apart at the seams. It's as if they were given a chance to redeem themselves for a few decades, various revelations, lawsuits, disclosures, but ultimately they didn't really approach the top of the pyramid. They threw a lot of other things under the bus at the base of the pyramid, and it seems like time keeps marching forward in a circle. And as it marches forward in a circle, the things it tramples gets finer and finer, like dust. And things are getting more honest in this transparency. People are very quick to deny, deflect, and defer. Um, it's a defense mechanism against inquiry, which takes time. And I guess in a way, that's that person's business. I mean, if they don't want to talk or uh, can't handle a rebuttal, then okay, it's don't let that get you down. Uh, I think if you're really honest with yourself, whatever you're denied by someone else, if you don't hold any resentment in your heart, or which are basically unmet expectations that you're not owning and truly holding yourself liable for in your heart of hearts, um, then you've not really lost anything. It it doubles back on itself, and it becomes beholden to you two, three, four times stronger, because ultimately every expectation that you have, every desire, every want, every need, well, maybe not needs. Needs are kind of um, what they are. They're not really personal. But wants and desires and expectations, um, these are these are parts of you. They don't live and die with the permission of others, although it feels that way sometimes. And there are certain egos that thrive on people who believe that somehow someone who is not receptive has triumphed in some way. And ultimately, it's simply not possible. There is no triumph. There is no race to be won. I think Rumi once said, um, out beyond good and evil, there's a garden. I will meet you there. Or no, actually, the quote goes, out beyond wrongdoing and right doing, there is a garden. I will meet you there. And I think that he's pointing to that uh, quintessential or um, vital third party, the the part of ourselves that cannot speak, cannot write things down, can't record what it is. We can allude to it. That's the best that we can do, and it can be provoked by music and um, certain certain things can trigger it, but not decipher it. It's like it gets its attention, but it's not able to interpret or understand. So again, return to sender is um, is high magic. There are things that people consider dark magic and light magic that's mainly from movies. But then there's real magic. Apologies are one form of real magic. And also what I call return to sender. And it's not an outward deliberate look what I did kind of thing. It can't be, because then it's not magic. It's just rejection and a form of like egoic belittlement or comparison, uh, like a gotcha moment. It's more of a quiet place of not giving out what is routinely expected in a confrontation. And everyone has their form of this if you develop it, because it's not something that comes natural. It's a craft. Um, it's not a part of human default behavior. It's once you discover it's possible to do, then you have to develop your own way of doing it. And it's often going to be misinterpreted as um, something else. And that's part of its effect. And there's going to be self doubt around this because it's new. You're going to think, oh, it's something else. They're right. Or what if the world turns against me or my acquaintances or my friends? But you have to you don't have to do anything, but let's just say if you're curious about this, practicing it will become its own answer. And it's very difficult to endure because the resistance against it you also absorb. but better to absorb resistance than an infusion of playing the game, taking the bait, getting all worked up over something that doesn't belong to you ultimately, or is manipulated in a way to be borrowed from another person in order to disguise your own shortcomings and your own individual project at hand. So often we're busy with other people's business because ours is too expensive to invest in. So says the ego, it's too expensive. So this return to sender idea, not responding in the way that is routinely expected. So if you can get out in front of your reactions, the things that come up to the surface really quick, get out in front of your thoughts and try to remind yourself to include silence in your space and eye contact. Eye contact is very important. It's one of the touchstones of this method of boundary demarcation. And everyone's heard of boundaries. It's like, it's not the kind of boundaries that rattlesnakes are totems for. Those are more instinctual, kind of common sense boundaries where you warn someone, and if they don't step back, then both parties are at risk of something peculiar happening. It's not like that. This is something deeper. This is a demarcation of a boundary that involves trauma surfacing from others, and and how that trauma uh, it has a subconscious desire to look for reconciliation wherever it can until it finds it. And sometimes, curiously enough, it looks so much that the looking itself becomes an additional trauma. It's like a reliving of an event that was very influential in the person's life. It changed them in some way. In a way that they haven't integrated. It's still a resentment. It's still angsty. So it's important to have these boundaries, no matter how they're interpreted, and to experiment, and however you work with this quiet space, how you deliver it, is entirely up to you. As soon as you justify it with words, you lose its power. You try to explain it, and it's gone before you even pronounce explain. It's very shy of words. it functions as itself, in itself, of itself. So ultimately, you're participating with a substance from the psyche or from the mind, something you can conjure up. And this quiet space, it's part of nature. It's part of children even. Um, Children can be very quiet and up to a lot. They often say if the children are quiet, that's when you really need to find out where they are. And I find that really beautiful, because that's an expression of what I'm talking about. That inside this quietness, the gears really start to solidify and become things that would make a diamond blush. And it's the power of you. It's a core environment where you exist. Behind the words, behind the opinions, behind the interpretations, behind the translations that become a kind of personal propaganda. Because the ego is not interested in verification of facts. It will resist verification of facts under all circumstances, because the ego is based on many things, but one of its top tier ingredients is assumption and imagination. The more it assumes, the more the story it can write that feeds the trauma that needs attention from anything, even a made-up story. But this story also has a purpose, but that's for another talk. It's being written, but it's also writing the writer. Because to me, there's no such thing as wasted time. So even when you're involved in a contradiction, it does have the possibility to refine you and teach you something. And try it out. If you can get out in front of your thoughts and your reactions and just put a few pauses in from time to time. Like, if when someone's speaking with you and not at you, check yourself. Make sure you're not just hearing them. When you're just hearing someone, that means you're listening to your own thoughts and replies that you're planning to have once they're finished talking. That means you never hear anyone. But to really listen to someone, a pause has to occur. You have to open up a window in the front of the house and the back of the house and turn the stereo off and let their voice flow through. And hear it. And then listen. Listen to the contents. Feel the contents, the nuances, the inflections in their voice, the dips and ups and downs, the pauses, the facial expressions, the body movements, tension, relaxation. Talking is music, and the body dances to it. Um, Being quiet in the face of drama can be a very, um, it can trigger violent reactions. But it's important. It's in the long run, it's important for modeling that there's more than drama available in the world to drama. Drama seeks its own reflection, and that's what it's used to. That's what carries forward the trauma into generational trauma, um, family trauma, even marital trauma, where two people share, um, they're enabling one another in some subconscious way. They complete one another, but not necessarily in a good way, which some people call toxic relationships. So, and you can see it in nature: stillness, pause. It's very rare these days, it seems. Um, it's a rare commodity. And the mind will jump through all kinds of hoops to avoid it, because the emotions are dependent on a story, emotions that reinforce an identity that may or may not be true to what a person essentially is. But ultimately, that's not really the point of focus. The point of focus is to maintain your quest for improvement, if you so see improvement is needed. If not, then party hard, rock on. Um, but if you see that there's something more, you can feel it, but you can't touch it just yet. Um, then these practices are essential in breaking through to the other side, bringing some relief and hope to an otherwise very like redundant a redundant routine in the world of punishing conflict, um, condemning evil, and in the condemnation, the condemner becomes the evil. There's no escape. I mean, in this brutal roundabout with no exits. Once you're in there, you're in there. And so why not experiment? Because we're definitely in there. The Earth's rotation uh, can, attests to this. So it's not to say that all life is a roundabout with no exits, but I'm more referring to the things that routinely create self-sabotage, a sense of uh, unfulfilled, um, unfulfillment, I guess you could say, and all sorts of angst-ridden outward projections towards the external world. Um, the ego can only define itself by comparison. The us and them, the you and I, and it will do anything it can to create distance, because the more distance, the better the comparison, the less the probability of being cross-examined by that which it's targeting the comparison for, or with, or to, in many cases. So something to think about going forwards. If forwards is your forte, that quietness is only something you can prove to yourself, what its nature means for you, the pause, the boundary, the unspoken boundary. But it gets demonstrated, and you'll figure it out. You'll figure out ways to do it. And it's going to trigger some folks. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that the ammunition that they've shipped to you has been returned to sender. That you're not interested in playing war games. Or pretending it's peacetime in Gaza. People have got all kinds of stuff going on under the surface. And if you cannot be loved for being available for love, it's really hard to love in that situation. One-way streets. Bad news for love. But good news for the person learning how to read signs, how to look up every once in a while and make sure that the arrows are pointing in both directions. And the more you learn the signs, the more wise you become, the more discerning you become, and the quicker beginnings will fail, which is a good thing, because then that gives you more time to find real beginnings. Don't be stubborn with red flags. They're not pink. They're not light burgundy. they're read. Thank you and take care.